everybody, and welcome to this edition of Your Music, Your Way, the powerful path of sonic improvisation for accessing innate genius and liberating your unique and precious gifts. I'm here today with Pamela Bruner, who is an amazing new friend that I've been getting to know over the last few months at the Jubilee community in Asheville, and she's an amazing person in a lot of different kinds of ways, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you, Pamela, so welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And I'll introduce Pamela a little bit more in just a minute. So the context for this summit is that, as we all know, we're facing a lot of unknowns. We're facing a lot of uncertainty in so many different kinds of ways. And as in the midst of so much uncertainty around our institutions and norms and beliefs and strategies that we've been accustomed to for generations, we're now in this process of even trying to discern what facts are and what reality is. And it comes to me to think that one of the most valuable skills that any of us can learn at this point in human history is to be able to navigate the unknown with mastery. And when we do that, it's easier for us to access the creative parts of ourselves and the flexible parts of ourselves and the resilient parts of ourselves that make it possible to navigate the unexpected and when things go awry. And so this conference is about looking at how sonic improvisation, music improvisation, or just the improvisation with sound, can help us to learn some of those skills and help us to learn how to navigate more efficiently and fruitfully through our lives. So with that, I'd like to introduce Pamela. Pamela is a business coach, author, speaker, and online marketing strategist. She's a former professional musician and a singer, and she has built a 7-figure coaching business in just 3 years. Well, she did. She's been in it much longer than that now, and supports transformational leaders to expand their reach. Pamela is the co-author of Tapping into Ultimate Success, a book and DVD with Jack Canfield, the creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And today she's here to talk with us about music for resilience, using music to move forward powerfully on goals. So again, thanks, Pamela. It's great to, I can't wait to dive into this.
I'm really excited too. I think the idea of navigating the unknown with mastery is one of the most exciting ideas I've heard in years. And so I'm super, super grateful to be here.
Cool. So let's just start. Give us a little bit of an introduction of how you kind of got into your path of business and using music to make the world a better place.
Well, as you said, I'm a former professional musician. I keep sort of going back and forth between left brain, right brain stuff. I was a computer programmer, and then I became a professional Celtic harpist and singer, sort of the other end of the spectrum, and did that for a number of years, recorded a number of albums, really enjoyed it, and decided I wanted to inspire people in a different way, so I became a business coach. And I used music sparingly for the first, I don't know, number of years as a business coach. I would bring it out at my live events. I would use it as a sort of really exotic flavor in what I did. And now, right now, I'm finding that I'm pulling the music in more for exactly what we're talking about. That music, both playing, listening, and all of that is helping me be the person that I need to be in order to move my business forward to the next level. And that's super exciting.
So that is exciting, and it strikes a curiosity in me. It's like, what do you mean by it helps you be the person that you need to be?
Well, a couple of things. I believe that music has I mean, it's a mood altering substance. It just is. We can listen to instrumental music and change our moods. Because I'm also a singer songwriter. I think the idea of setting words to music, when those words are something that you want to believe, there's an enormous community, and Asheville's part of it, that believe in affirmations and that words have power. But often our conscious minds will interfere with the power of the words. We will have a resistance or a negative response to some very positive affirmations. But when we set those words to music, they are processed differently. Now, I'm not a brain scientist. This is my experience personally and with clients at events. I'm not saying anything about brain science, but it's my understanding
Uh-huh.
that rhythm and music bypasses the conscious brain. So if I know that I am on my way to an event where I want to be powerful, I'm going to listen to music, particularly music that I find to be uplifting, but usually that goes along with lyrics.
Uh-huh.
So I'm getting those lyrics. I'm getting that mood altering substance. I don't need caffeine. I don't need drugs. I just need the mood altering substance of music to put me in this state where I feel incredibly positive. And so you can do that listening. You don't have to have a musical background to do that. I also find that I feel very powerful when I play and or sing. So whether it's singing along to the music, playing my harp and singing, all of those enable me to step into who I want to be. And every time I raise my confidence and my power and raise my vibration, then I go back to anything else I do in my life, including my business, including the goals that I have, in a more resourced state.
Nice. More resourced state. Nice. So, what do you think is one of the best ways? You just described some, but you talk about using music to more powerfully move forward towards your goals. What do you mean by that, and how do you see that?
Uh, well, first to look at this, I'm going to step into what it means to have goals, because usually when we think of goals, we think of I will achieve X by such and such a date. I will make X number of dollars by such and such a date. I will lose X number of pounds by such and such a date, whatever that goal is. That's only one type of goal. I like to think that's what I call a results goal. That's what most people think of as a goal. But there's also process goals and there's feeling goals. A process goal is something that you do that you have control over. Like I have a goal of going to the gym 3 times a week, for example. That is a goal I have control over,
Mhm.
and that's the process is the goal. And a
Mhm.
feeling goal is I want to feel this way when I make a sales call or when I go to the gym or whatever the goal is.
Mhm.
Music is most helpful, I think, not necessarily in the results goal, because often that's action towards the result, but in the process and feeling goals, which support the result goal, it's amazing because you can use music to smooth out the process and help you with the process. I mean, how many times people put music on in the background when they're trying to get work done, to motivate themselves, to inspire them to new heights, or or we put on music to give us a particular feeling as
Mhm.
we're moving through things. But most people don't think in terms of process and feeling goals, but I think they're critical. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, it does. And so if I want to feel better about my work week, if I want to feel less stressed, I can be intentional about I'm going to put on some of this kind of music in the mid morning when I want to just go ahead and charge up, and then I want to
Mhm.
put this kind of music on. And in some ways, that's just kind of a something that would come naturally if we weren't so flipped out in our heads so much of the time.
Mhm.
But to bring consciousness to that feels pretty powerful.
Right. Well, and it does mean too that you have to be open to exploring different kinds of music, because I know that for a long time, my go-to was what we might call new age music or relaxing music. Sometimes it was harp, sometimes it was other instruments. But I noticed that I needed this spice of other kinds of music, whether it was playing and singing or whether it was listening, in order to jolt me into a creative mode or to jolt me into new ways of thinking. Because anything, no matter how much we love it, if we do that too repetitively, we get stuck in a rut,
Hmm.
and we need to shift.
And out
So
goes
yeah.
activity. Yeah, nice. And so, one of the things that I'm curious about, I've been looking forward to asking you this for a while because we've been getting to know each other for the last few months in various ways and playing in a music jam together and various conversations here. I'm curious how you are experiencing these days, you playing your harp, or you singing, or you doing some other kind of music making yourself, and how are you incorporating that into your life, and what kind of a difference is that making in your life lately?
It's making an enormous difference. And to be fair, I am reacquainting myself with a with an instrument that I was very accomplished on 10 years ago. It's wonderful to sort of take back up a hobby that you're already good at. So there is that. But even for people who are taking up an instrument for the first time, or just learning to explore an instrument, my experience is that we can approach the instrument sort of strategically. Like, what do I need to learn to do to get this passage down? We can we can uh, we can approach an instrument with wonder. Like,
Mm,
you pluck one note on the harp, and it's so amazing. It is, what is it? What does it feel like when I sing this one phrase in this song? And what do I want to imbue that phrase with? I mean,
mm,
there's a Celtic song I'm singing right now. It's interestingly enough a song of sort of anger and revenge, which is not where I live on a regular basis. But I'm using that song and practicing that song and singing that song in order to process some of the anger and the irritation that I have in life. So I'm using the music to work through both feelings that I want to enhance and feelings that I want to let pass through me, which is
mm.
really super cool.
That's way super cool, it's a perfect it's a perfect kind of lead in to one of the ways that I help people with music improv is to think of this energy that we're feeling, and sometimes the thing to do is to play that energy. It's like just to play it. If it's anger, especially anger is one of the hardest ones for us to just, especially if it's a piano, because that gets really ugly really quickly. But it's powerful to do that. And then sometimes the choice is, well, I've been feeling this, and maybe I've been working it for a couple of weeks or something now, and I want to feel something, I want it to go somewhere else. Or maybe if I've just been going at it for 10 minutes and now I'm ready for it to move somewhere else, and like to make this conscious decision, like, what's my goal next? Where do I want to go? I don't want to
Mhm.
just keep doing the anger. I want it to get expressed, and I also want it to go somewhere. I also want it to move and have
Mhm.
that be. And I know that in my own experience with anger, sometimes I've just, like with a punching bag for a long time, I just, not a long time, but years ago, for several months, I would go down into my basement. I would just punch this punching bag like crazy. And then I'd just end up on the floor in sobs. And then I'd be up and punching it again. And then I'd be back on the floor in sobs, this movement of all this energy. And I think, music, sound making instruments can be an outlet like that also. And it sounds like it's kind of serving that purpose for you as well.
It is. Yeah, exactly. And of course, the ultimate transformative opportunity to me comes in songwriting. So whether it's just improvising a melody that starts angrily and then transforms into something sort of beautiful and peaceful, or whether you actually write a song with lyrics that takes you there. Um,
Hmm.
I have a song, the lyrics of which are you carrying a burden of anger, friend, and would you like to lay it down?
Mm,
So that song takes you through that whole process of, this is what I'm experiencing, and this is where I want to go with it.
uh-huh. Nice. And that's our choice pretty much all the time, isn't it? It's like, this is what is. Now what?
Hmm. Exactly, exactly.
Uh-huh. And that's the creative, that feels like the essence of the creative process, is to be aware of what is, and then go, okay, who am I here? It's like, okay, this is who I am now. What do I want to do? What direction do I want to go in?
And
Uh,
I think music gives us a unique ability. One of my favorite questions that the people who know me well, who have permission to coach me all the time, ask me, if I start being someone that I'm not committed to being, they will say, "Who do you want to be in this moment?" And I think music gives us that opportunity to say, "Who do I want to be in this moment?" Whether it's listening or playing or singing, who do I want to be?
nice, nice. That's such a powerful reminder, and it's funny, just intellectually it seems like, well, duh, but sometimes it's not so easy to do. It's when we're
And that's why music is so wonderful. So for me, what's special about the music and using music for resilience or your goals is that, and I've done personal development work for almost 30 years now. Sometimes it's just hard. It's like, okay, it's time for my gratitude practice, and I'm doing my gratitude practice through gritted teeth. I'm just not in the space of gratitude.
Critity.
But I can use music, and it'll put me in a new state. It's just a smaller lift. It's just a lighter effort to do
Mm,
that.
I love that. It's a smaller lift. It's like it's easier to just go,
Hmm.
just sink into the sound and slows the mind down. Helps to um, just get present, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Hmm.
And I would do it with words because that's my natural bend. But I would say something like, "I am grateful. I am grateful," and I might sing that over and over until it becomes true.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I just enjoy the feel of the music coming through my throat.
Yeah, yeah. That reminds me of a time I was driving along. It was, I don't know when this was, 10 or 12 years ago. And um, I was on kind of a long trip and I was feeling pretty depressed. I was pretty down. And I was already starting to think more and more of these kinds of ideas that we're talking about. And I had already experienced a lot of their benefits, but still, like you say, sometimes it's just hard. And in that moment, I was like, dude, you could bring yourself out of this. And I'm like, yeah. And I thought, well, why don't you just give it a shot? What the heck? You've got 5 hours in front of you with nothing else to do. And so I was like, okay. So I started playing, on the steering wheel. I just playing a rhythm that I knew was a happy rhythm, and and then I started, and it really wasn't probably 2 minutes, about 2 minutes, and I was really starting to, like the fog was lifting. I
Mhm.
love that. It's an easy lift. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy lift because we know how to make a happy rhythm,
Hmm.
or we know how to make an affirmation. I'm so grateful. We know we can say it,
Hmm.
and you can just do it a little bit and give yourself a gift of some grace
Hmm.
that is self-imposed.
Yes, exactly. I love it. It's great. That's a great example. And I've done it many times in a car too.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we all need that, and somehow or other, that's not really out there in the mainstream. They don't teach us that in school. They
Mhm.
don't teach us. They don't hear that on television. It's a little bit too sappy or something, and we all need it. I think these days we need it more and more because there's so many reasons to be kind of wigged out, and we don't really have to be if we give
Mhm.
ourselves these gifts. Um, so how do you envision moving this conversation from the individual? Like, how does individual action and behavior impact the larger world?
I think individual action and behavior is the only thing that will impact the larger world. That's the thing. We all must interact as individuals. We all must do our part. Otherwise, I think we expect organizations to do it for us, or governments, or whatever. Um, so, for me, one of the reasons that I'm a business coach, and specifically for the industries that I work with transformational people, I work with coaches and consultants and healers and speakers and trainers, is there is no way I can have a transformational effect on as many people as I want to. But if I have a transformational effect on those who do the work, then there's a ripple effect. So for people who are struggling with business or goals, these are usually the people with the biggest missions. People who want to play small don't set goals. People who don't want to shine their light in the world don't start these kind of businesses. So the people who are making an effort to do that are often the people struggling. If we can give them a tool like improvisation, like mastering the navigating the unknown with mastery, then the ripple effect of what will happen in the world. When the transformational entrepreneurs have more money, the world is a better place.
Hmm.
Great things happen, and we can use music to as part of the toolkit to facilitate that change.
Mm-hmm. And it can be, and one of the things that I love about it is that it is such an easy lift. I think I'm going to be using that phrase. I can't tell you, since I started helping people learn how to improvise on piano, I can't tell you, I'm sure you know, how many people will say, I don't have a musical bone in my body. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, I wish I could do that. Oh yeah, I had lessons when I was a kid, but my teacher said this, or I gave it up and whatever. And and it's it's kind of impossible to just tell somebody who says that I'm not a musician that it's just not true.
Mm.
Who talks like this? Nobody just talks like this.
Yeah.
Nobody, nobody, right? We're singing when we talk, and there's meaning in all the little pitches in our phrasing. And some people have to walk with a limp, but most people walk pretty much in a rhythm, and their heartbeats generally work in rhythm. And it's who
Mhm.
we are. And so many different ways I think that music has been defined, and people think that in order to be a musician you have to be able to play somebody else's music really well, and that it
Mhm.
doesn't have anything to do with me just exploring sounds
Mhm.
and just playing, like you would if you were four. And it's just a natural thing.
It is. It is, and it's interesting because um, even as a trained musician, there were things that I didn't learn until uh, you know, I didn't take up the harp till I was in my 20s. I grew up playing piano and cello, so there was this gap there, and then I started the harp. And when I did, I mean, for one thing, there was this discovery of the Celtic and the folk music, um, but there was also a discovery of musical patterns that delighted me. I remember the first time that I did a certain pattern that's called a deceptive cadence, where you go to a six instead of one chord, and it's like, this is the most magical thing ever. And and of course, it's very common. But to me, there was this incredible discovery, and that sort of parallels, I think, the discovery, the ahas that we have when we learn new things about ourselves or our world or our businesses or how to affect our goals.
Hmm. And there's I love that what you bring up there, because there's so much richness in the experience of doing that. For me, the way I have come to see this is that, and pardon my voice, I did way too much yelling a couple of days ago in a ritual. I go into those rituals and I go, okay, dude, don't lose your voice. Don't go in there and just and then I go in and, um, but there's a difference between the music and the map. And so many of us get the map confused with the music. The music is the sound. The music is the thing that's vibrating our bodies and giving us an experience that's below our mental, below our left brains. It's that thing that affects us emotionally directly.
Mm-hmm.
And all the other stuff, the notes on the page and the theories and the chord structures and all that stuff, that's a way of understanding the structure of the music perhaps, but really it's not even notes. These are just frequencies of sound.
Mm-hmm.
And we get so disconnected from that physical experience of the sound itself, that we can think that we're not musicians because we don't know the map. It would almost like being saying that you can't operate a car because you can't get in under the hood. And there's so many things that we do. I was at this was in an S training years ago, probably 79 or 80, and I remember one of the trainers was asking somebody, how do you walk? Explain to me how you walk. And so, the guy started trying to get into, well, I decide to put this foot in here, and, well, how do you do that? And then he started getting into, well, the connections in my brain are telling this connect. Oh, okay, well, how do you do that? And it's like, ultimately, we have no idea how we're doing all this stuff. It
Mm-hmm.
just happens. We have this capacity to do things that we really don't know where it comes from. And so the map and the way you would try to explain it is really kind of beside the point. So one of the things that I love about this is that it drops us into this creative potential that we have to do something in the world that makes a difference. And like you say, each person, I'm doing this summit, and I've never done a summit before. And a few months ago, the idea was presented to me, and I thought, yeah, it'd really be fun to talk to a bunch of interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
And voila, here we are. And this is now going out to over 100,000 people. So, it's kind of mind blowing, just the power of a decision and bringing some heart with it and the desire to bring good stuff into the world. It's amazing what can happen.
It certainly is. It certainly is.
So I'd love to hear you talk about if there was anything that came to mind to say just then, feel free to say it. And otherwise, I've got a question for you.
Okay. Um, no, I'm just sitting in the wonder uh, of the opportunities and the possibilities that we have to use creativity, especially through music, uh, to bring forth the life that we want to live. And I think music is not a hobby. It's not something we do on Tuesday nights. It is, music can be this amazing life-giving elixir that's as important as food or water or companionship. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's an extraordinary thing.
It really is. I'm sure you've seen these videos of these older folks who are getting a little catatonic, and I think it's just because they're bored to death. And then somebody will play some music that from back in the day, and they just light up and remember all the words, and
And they
sing
come alive.
and they
Yeah.
come alive. It literally brings life. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about the charge that you had, the creative charge that you had to step into your business, and why you took that path to step into business and do it in the way that you did.
Well, as I said, I was a professional harpist. I was performing at major harp conferences. Most of what I was doing was CDs and a little bit of teaching. And there was a workshop I was teaching called Creating Music with Love, Not Fear, which was basically, performance anxiety workshop. And I realized that that was my favorite thing to do. And I was sort of living to do that 3 times a year at the national harp conferences. And I said, how could I do this more frequently? And this was 15, 16 years ago. And coaching was not as familiar a profession as it is now. So I created a mantra, and uh, lived into that for a couple of months, and finally someone said, why don't you look at coaching? And I said, I don't even know what that is. But I transitioned into what I believed and what I have found to be a way to inspire people every day in a way that fulfills me. And now, the cool thing is the music has always sort of been there guiding me and supporting me on the outskirts. And now I'm bringing it back in even more powerfully. I'm using it intentionally as a tool rather than just, something I pick up occasionally.
Uh-huh. So that's fascinating. So you were doing this, that you were preparing yourself musically for many years, and then you got this spark to this is something that you can do. One of the things that I love about that story, I've heard you've told me this before, and one of the things I love about it is that you realized sort of this discovery. It's like, oh, I love doing this. Oh, I love teaching this stuff, right? It's like,
Right.
oh, there's a lot of juice here. I've been doing this other thing because I'm good at it, and people pay me, and it's fine. But oh, I really have some juice around helping people to get over their stage fright or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really fun. And so you decided to follow that energy, that like whee kind of charge. And then your life has opened up in so many ways since then, and now you're bringing back some of your old skills and loves, the love of
Mm-hmm.
playing music for love, not fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah, it's and the circle continues.
Yeah. Very good. Well, I know we're sort of sneaking up on time. Is there anything else that you would like to say to our listeners who may be coming into this from different perspectives? Maybe they're curious about how they might begin to explore music, or they might be curious about improvisation. A lot of people, the whole idea of improvisation just is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's challenging to sort of step into this unknown space and be afraid of really not doing it well.
Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is, I was thinking about this when I was listening to actually the minister at Jubilee talk about improvisation the other day. We improvise every day, all the time. I'm improvising this conversation with you. We didn't rehearse this. I didn't write a script for this conversation. I'm improvising this conversation. Now I'm working in an area I have some familiarity, but unlike you, I'm not a master at navigating the unknown. Like that's not my area of mastery. My area of
It's
mastery is business.
it's a good thing it's not like me, because I don't know if I would describe myself that way, but
Well, I have mastery in business, but this is, we're improvising this conversation. I
yeah.
generally you improvise every conversation you have. When you ask your partner, "How was your day?" That's an improvisation. So, when people say I'm afraid of improv, I'm like, how can you be afraid of something that you're doing every minute of the waking day?
Yeah.
It's and when you look at it like that and sort of step back and take that self-awareness, um, then is there a way that you can take that freedom and flexibility into improvising with music or improvising in any creative endeavor in your life?
Well, it's a beautiful answer, and one of the things that strikes me as you say that is that maybe a lot of us, and I know I speak for myself here, I think I've spent a lot of my life in a lot of anxiety, and I I learned a few months ago a little bit about.
You're not
Uh,
alone.
well, I think that's probably right, and I learned for myself a few months ago. It was confirmed a little bit about why that may have been in my own personal life. I remembered I've sort of figured it out over time, and then it was confirmed a kind of a not a past life, but what do they call back to the
Regression.
a regression back to my child infancy,
Mhm.
and it was confirmed in a pretty powerful way. And so it was like just in the last few months that I've realized and had it confirmed. One of the reasons that I have had this underlying low-level anxiety virtually my entire life, 60 years of my life, I have had this anxiety, and I have a way of explaining it now. And and part of the thing that strikes me about what you were saying about we're improvising every moment is that the way that has played out for me is that I've often had this idea that the thing that there's something that I don't know, that everybody else knows, that everybody
Mm.
else gets, and I'm not getting. And so I need to figure out what the heck that is so that I can change myself so that I can fit into the flow of life. And that's kind of bass backwards, really. Uh, and so the more I can trust that my experience is legit, everything that I experience is my experience, and that's legitimate,
Mhm.
and I can trust that, and then I can reach in, even if it's a little uncomfortable, even if I'm going to do something that maybe runs against the grain a little bit, and maybe it upsets people, or people get confused and they start to move away from me or whatever. I can be solid in my own who I am, and then I can offer something that may be of genuine benefit.
Mhm.
Uh,
That's beautiful. That's great.
yeah.
And so, I don't know that a lot of people understand that they experience anxiety, but I think that anxiety is rampant in our culture because our society and our attention demands and things like that tend to create anxiety. So that shedding awareness on it, I think, is great. And then we can return back to the whole idea of using music to uh, listening to music to release that anxiety until we can step into creating sound to release that anxiety.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Pamela, I'm loving this, and I love this combination of what you bring. This music and this business focus, because I think you're the only person in this summit that's really talking about business much. And just to throw in a little bit of a hurrah on that note, it seems to me that one of the ways that we can transform as a society is to learn more ways that we can have relationships with other people that can help us to survive. That I can
Mhm.
bring my heart to a project, and then also be remunerated with that, so that I can survive doing the thing that I really love, instead of
Mhm.
the thing that I just need to do in order to make enough money to pay the mortgage or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and that to me feels revolutionary. The more of us can find our gift and be remunerated for it, then
Mhm.
why not?
I'm so glad you said that because I think that there is, now I get on my soapbox for like 30 seconds, which is this idea that if you're doing something that you particularly love, that you don't need to be well compensated for it. In fact, sort of the work is its own reward and that kind of thing. And what was the phrase you used? Bass backwards. So instead for me, and this is, I will fully admit this is a spiritual belief, that we are given these gifts to share, and that the universe is an abundant place and it is our job to receive. And the best way for us to receive is through our gifts. So you aren't, it's not that you should be paid less for what you are excellent at. You should not be paid well for what is very hard for you because you're probably not very good at it. You should instead be paid very well for what seems easy and delightful for you because that's your gift.
Mm, beautiful. Well, speaking of gifts, you have a gift to offer, I believe.
I do. I do. I've got a training called Profit from Your Gifts: How to Earn $3,000 to $10,000 per client. And so, if you have any kind of
Per client.
yes, yes, I
This
have trained.
happens. This
I
happens.
I've trained so many hundreds of people to do this. So if you have any kind of expertise, transformational gifts, anything like that, this will be very useful to you in seeing how to set up something that people are eager to pay that money for, that allows you really to use your best gifts and put your best transformation in the world. So super excited to have people take that training and see how to do that.
Wonderful. And I encourage anybody out there to check this out. Pamela, I really appreciate your time today. This has been fantastic, and I love the way that all of these subjects and ideas are floating around my sleeve. I really appreciate your energy, your smarts, and your heart. So,
Oh, thank you, Daniel. My pleasure to be here and share these ideas with you and have this improvisation.